Good.
Aloha. My name is Ale George, and I'm going to be presenting to you on the impact of the ukulele. The ukulele is sort of thought to be a silly instrument. It's sort of perceived that way because of a few reasons. One, when you go to Hawaii, one of the things that they really like to sell to you is that they have the ukulele and they made it famous. So it's kind of like a cheap tourist attraction type deal where they just kind of give it out for cheaper prices. And another reason is George Formby. He's a British comedian. He would kind of do like playful tunes, kind of like that, and he would put it to sort of crude or inappropriate lyrics. And that was around the 1930s, so that perception really got out there and people started seeing it as somewhat of a silly, washed-up guitar. So I'm going to present to you on the more serious side of the instrument. Four main things that I'm going to talk to you about is King Kalikaua, I'm pretty sure is how it's pronounced, the jazz and rock influence that it had, Chalmers Doan, and the modern day influence. First off, King Kalikaua, he was the king of Hawaii in the late 19th century. He had a huge impact on Hawaiian culture, mostly because he was a patron of the arts and everyone loved him. He was most especially known for his appreciation for the music and arts. And he was a big part of the Hawaiian revival, which he brought back traditions and music that was somewhat repressed earlier. He used the ukulele in performances and royal gatherings, which was extremely important in noting that it would take a more serious side in the music world because royal gatherings were, it was used in royal gatherings, which was extremely important. Okay, the jazz and rock influence. It was known to be an icon of the jazz age. Through 1920s through around the 1960s, mostly prominent in Japan and the continental United States was where the jazz influence was mostly formed. And it served as a really good tool for not only extremely talented and famous musicians, but amateur musicians as well would use it as a tool to inspire most of their music. Once it came around to the rock ages, 1950s, 1960s, early rock and roll, probably the biggest influence you could have gotten was the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley. He made it very known in his Blue Hawaii soundtrack, and also the Beatles, more specifically George Harrison, played the ukulele a little bit when he was writing songs. Chalmers Doan, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Around the 1960s, he brought the ukulele to the classroom, which is extremely imperative. He started it in Canada. He was a professor at one of the schools down there, and he used it as an educational tool for younger children. He started it off that way anyways, because it was inexpensive to schools. I don't know, when I was in school we learned the keyboard, and that's an expensive instrument, so in order to really bring it about, it was great that it was inexpensive for schools, lower budgets, things like that. It was extremely important mostly because learning any instrument really enhances your cognitive processes and also boosts your confidence if you know how to do another task, which is really important. And so he created the program where they were musically literate by 6th grade, which is amazing. He also started adult classes as well later on. The modern day influence that it has. From about 1960 to 1990, it kind of, the fame kind of went downhill a little bit, but it brought back in the 90s mostly because of new manufacturers, and I think you've all heard the tune Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So it got to number 12 on the Billboard hits, which was amazing. I mean, most songs where ukuleles are featured, that's not usual. So another big thing is YouTube. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, a song written by George Harrison, who I mentioned before, one of the Beatles, a cover was put out on YouTube around the time YouTube came out, where While My Guitar Gently Weeps was played on the ukulele, and it went viral, it became huge. Also, rock, alternative, country, reggae, folk, blues, jazz, pop, everything. The ukulele was seen as such a versatile instrument. So all in all, the ukulele has created a global impact. more specifically as we've seen in Canada, Japan, but it's gone all over since. It's an inspiration for talented musicians as well as amateur musicians. It aids in your education, especially at a younger age, and it's shown to be extremely versatile in all the different genres that you can put it in. So hopefully next time you think about the ukulele, you don't just see it as a washed-up guitar.
The name ukulele, it sounds, now that you say it and connect it to Hawaii, it's a Hawaiian name, is it?
They argue about the origin of the ukulele, whether it's Portugal or Hawaii, but it took on the name.
It could have arrived in the Hawaiian Islands, of course, with the 19th century, 18th century trade that based in that found bases or that visited the Hawaiian Islands. Yeah. So it may have been a European instrument that got adopted. Why else would it have been particularly useful for young children?
I mean, well, I don't know. For me, I've played like 6 instruments.
Rhetorical question. Small instrument, right?
Yeah, it's small.
Right.
It's just it's easy to learn. There's only 4 strings.
Sure. So, and for small hands, it works much better than a guitar.